behalf of Pan IIT, I would like to thank every one of you very much for coming at this time, and for a couple of you, it's a very odd time. Thank you, Arjun, thank you, Deepak, and thank you, Chris. Now, moderating your session is Gita Mehta. I've known Gita's husband since 1965. For the last 55 years. Same hall, same block, and same floor, I think, Christian Mehta. And Gita is an adjunct professor of architecture at Columbia University. And she's done urban design projects in 12 different countries. And one of the biggest achievements is founding Asia Initiatives, an NGO whose objective is to empower the underserved communities through education and upskilling and microcredit. She invented the SOC, which are social capital credits, and the Asia Initiatives received a regional MIT Inclusive Innovation Award in 2019. Gita serves on the New York City Mayor's Advisory Board and on the boards of the Center for Living City in Tokyo, at the University of Tokyo. And she's written 6 books. So Gita, please take it from here.
Thank you so much, Ron, for this wonderful, warm introduction. I also want to welcome everyone who's joining us on this panel today. We have a terrific lineup of amazing philanthropists. And so the panel today is about philanthropy. And I just want to start by saying that actually the meaning of phil is love, and anthro means humans. So philanthropy is about sharing your love with others. And it's not just about generosity, it's about empowering others with dignity. It's not just about giving money, but it's about having a vision. It's about giving your time. It's not about what you can give, but also what you can share. It's about understanding how privileged each one of us is to be on this conference today and to be willing to share our privilege. To inspire us today, we have a star panel. And I have to tell you that 2 of our panelists, that is Chris and Deepak, they are in India right now, so it's past midnight for them. So a special thank you to them. So I'm going to start by introducing all our panelists, and then I will request them to make short opening remarks, and then we will start the conversation. If you have questions, please do put them in the chat, and we will try to answer as many of them as we can. So with that, let me first introduce Arjun Malhotra. He's the co-founder of HCL Group in 1975, taking it from a 6-person garage operation. I think garages are very important to IT companies. And he took it to be one of India's largest information technology corporations. He then went ahead and started HCL in United States in 1989 and grew it to 100 million annual revenues. He has founded the Professor G.S. Sanyal School of Telecommunications and Professor M.N. Farooqui Center for Innovation in IIT Kharagpur. Arjun serves on the board of governors of Indian School of Business in Hyderabad, IIT Kharagpur Foundation, IIM Udaipur, IIM Shillong, and the Doon School. He's a charter member of TIE. He has received so many awards, including the Dr. B.C. Roy Gold Medal, the Albert Einstein Technology Medal, DQ Lifetime Achievement Award, and 2 honorary doctorates. He's also the Executive Council member of NASCOM. He's also the founder with batchmate Kiran Seth of the Society for Promotion of Indian Classical Music and Culture amongst youth. This organization hosts 7,000 events annually all over India. He's also involved with Antara Foundation, working to address infant mortality and malnutrition in India, and Pan IITians Action for India that trains and upskills rural and semi-urban youth and arranges employment for them, as also Eye Care, a charitable eye hospital. Wow, he's a very busy person. Let me now introduce our other speaker, Deepak Chopra. He's the founder and CEO of his personal charity that he founded. It's called Freedom Employability Academy, which is amongst the 20 largest secular NGOs in India. Deepak's lifelong mission is to enable disadvantaged youth to move from low income to middle class and lead a productive, self-reliant life of dignity and go beyond and contribute to greater good. It's such a beautiful mission. Freedom Employability Academy runs a free, innovative employability competency program that builds personal skills like self-confidence, learning to learn, adaptability, ethics, and English language skills. More than 30,000 disadvantaged youth attend free classes at the 100 plus branches that the foundation has in 12 Indian cities. Deepak is from IIT Delhi. He also founded or co-founded multiple companies, including Q10 Research Centers, which is a research institute, which is the US market leader in 2 different segments of food supplements under the Q10. Actually, the really interesting thing that I learned about Deepak that I was so impressed about was that he believes that inheritance handicaps. So he has gently explained to his family that 100% of his assets will only be used to help the disadvantaged and poor through Freedom Employability Academy. This is just so amazing. Thank you, Deepak. Our third panelist today is Chris Gopalakrishnan. Chris is the chairman of Axelar Ventures. He's one of the co-founders of Infosys and has served as its vice chairman, CEO, and MD at various times. For his wonderful contribution to society, he was awarded Padma Bhushan in 2011. He has served as the chair of the Confederation of Indian Industry for 2013-14 and served as one of the co-chairs of the World Economic Forum in Davos in 2014. He serves on the boards of IIT Bangalore and the Okinawa Institute of Technology in Japan. He's the chairman of the Vision Group of IT for Karnataka government. Amazingly, Chris has contributed 225 crore rupees, which is about 40 million US dollars, to develop a center for brain research at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. This is the largest philanthropic gift ever received by the 105-year-old institution from an individual. He has also contributed $10 million to set up the distinguished visiting chairs in neurocomputing and data science at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore and the Indian Institute of Technology in Chennai. So as you can see, we have a truly, truly amazing panel. And I'm just so proud to have a chance to moderate this panel today. So let me start by asking Arjun to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Gita. Thank you for that very, very flowery and introduction. I've got to say that I don't do all those things simultaneously. Some of them are past. I used to be on some of those boards. I just wouldn't have the time if I had to do all that at the same time. But thank you again.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And of course, you forgot to mention, I'm an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur. But that's where your husband came from too. Yes, I thought I'd spend a few minutes just talking about my life story, because I think, like most IITians, I come from a middle-class family, and when I joined IIT, the idea was to get a job at the end of it and get some job security. It's another thing that 5 years later I ended up with some of my colleagues starting a company that now is quite well known, HCL, and But I talking about when I left college, and I guess this is true for most of us when we leave college, is you're 21 years old or in that range, and you want to go out and change the world, in some way. And then you get close to 40, you think half your life is over, or at least most of your productive life as you see it in India. And you try to think of how have I changed the world, and really you find that there's not very much you've done that has changed. And so in my case, my wife and I decided that we'd change the definition of the world and sort of draw the system boundaries a little differently and have them closer to home, so that the world becomes all the people I'm in touch with. And in India, it's all the people who work at home, your driver, your servants, your cook, all those people. And we said that we can't do very much for them, but let's educate their children as if we would educate our own children, provided they show an interest in getting educated. And that has been something very satisfying. And I find that there was a Government of India initiative. It was called Each One Teach One, and they were encouraging you to teach a woman rather than a man, because the woman would then teach multiple people after that, whereas the man is most likely is just the one person who would get taught. And I think I found that that becomes really, really interesting. And it was, very satisfying to tutor some of these kids as they went through school, and some of them went to college, and some of them are now working in companies as business analysts and IT programmers and stuff, and doing fairly well. In fact, one of them doing well lifts the whole family out from their lower middle class or poverty to becoming somewhat middle class, which is very, very satisfying. I think the other thing I decided to do at that time was to start getting involved with some of the organizations that try and make a difference. And Parfi is a great example. It was started after the Bombay Pan IIT conference, where the people at Pan IIT thought we should do something for the country, and so multiple initiatives were started, and one of them really took off fairly well. That's Parfi, Pan IITians Action for India. And what they do, as you mentioned, Gita, that they train rural youth and semi-urban youth and upskill them, train them and upskill them, and provide them jobs, sort of guarantee them jobs. And so right now they are doing some yeoman work in the state of Jharkhand, where I think some 20,000 girls from subsistence households, that's households that have holdings of less than 3 acres, and training them to become nurses. And this is in collaboration with the government of Jharkhand. And so they've set up a PPP type model, which we are hoping to replicate in a number of other states to get that done. The other organization that IITians started was IITians for India's Transformation. And there, what they felt was that there are a number of NGOs in India that have the capability, and the model is right. They can scale to a national level, but for some reason, they have not been able to scale. So why don't we use the experience of IITians who are my age or a little older, who've actually run large companies, and help them mentor these organizations and take them up to a bigger size. And I think IITians for India's Transformation, I call them IIT for IIT, are doing some of that work. And it's really satisfying to be involved with them. I thought I'd just share some of that in the few minutes that you gave me, so that there's a little background about what IITians can do as they move forward, or what anyone can do as they move forward in life. Thank you, Gita.
Thank you so much. Indeed, the contribution of IIT to the development of India is absolutely huge. And then you all continue to do such amazing things. So let me reach out to Deepak to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Gita, and thank you for the introduction. And hello, everyone. This is a little unusual that we can't see people so well, but it is what it is. So I'm going to start with a quote that speaks to what we do at Freedom Employability Academy. Existence is a strange bargain. Life owes us little, we owe it everything. The only true happiness comes from squandering ourselves for a purpose. Wise words from William Cowper, an 18th century poet. Squandering ourselves for a purpose. I really like that. I think it's an amazing turn of phrase. So on to my passion project, or really my obsession project, Freedom Employability Academy, or FEA. So as Gita mentioned, FEA is a personal charity that I started about 20 years ago. So a lot of lessons learned, mistakes made, and experiences, both positive and otherwise, bring me to this point today, where I can tell you about our big, ambitious plans for the next 20 years. We believe that in the next 20 years, the FEA program will be able to enable at least 5 million citizens to make the transition from low income to the middle class within the Indian society. A little different from what we learned at FEA, at IIT, is the fact that we now live in an era where content knowledge does not pay very much. The key employability skills now are learning to learn and adaptability. And the FEA program specifically focuses on building the mindsets, the personal skills, the non-cognitive skills that make disadvantaged youth employable and successful. So essentially, our free training program is based on answering the question, what makes us successful in our careers? So for about 10 years, we've been operating a program for disadvantaged urban youth, and we are now piloting a subset of that program for marginalized rural youth. Urban youth in general aspire to professional white-collar jobs, and for them, our program has the following major components. First is building English language skills to a level that is needed for employability, that makes you effective in the workplace. Second is developing the personal skills that include building a growth mindset, persistence, self-control, the ability to communicate, collaborate, work with others, ethics, a sense of community, and also to explore the joy of giving. You don't have to be a wealthy person to give. Everybody has the ability to give the world around them. Next, we inspire students to become lifelong learners. We show them the value of this and how to learn online using MOOCs and other similar devices. If you think about someone from a low income, low resource, low opportunity background, that's a very valuable tool for them. Finally, we arrange for mentorship and we provide career counseling. So over the years, FEA has worked extensively with globally sourced academics, experts, and consultants to help inform and refine the curriculum. So for our operation, we now have about 700 employees. This includes teachers, managers, IT staff, staff trainers, and so on. In fact, the beating heart of our operation is really our staff training program. So we all know that great things happen in a classroom that has trained, talented, and inspiring teachers. But the reality is that it's hard to attract such qualified, talented teachers to go and work in a poor neighborhood for any extended period of time. So our solution is to really invest heavily in training our staff, and we do that work in-house. We hire college graduates that have no prior work experience, that have no teaching experience, and we train them intensively ourselves in our facilities. And this is an ongoing process. So they'll be attending, the teachers attend teaching classes every month for several years. So I'm pleased to tell you that to date, the impact of our urban program has been substantial. Our students typically double their income, and some even triple or quadruple what they would ordinarily earn. In fact, Stanford University is conducting a randomized controlled trial to measure the economic impact of our curriculum. I'm going to end by sharing a student success story that illustrates what our program accomplishes. Rohit Sikarwar is the son of a tea stall owner, and you can actually view his video on our homepage. Rohit says that growing up, sometimes they only had one meal a day. He was plagued with self-doubt and felt put down by relatives and others who told him that he would not amount to much in life. So adolescence was a dark period in his life, and it's unfortunately all too common an experience. After school, Rohit got occasional work carrying equipment for a wedding photographer. Nothing regular, just once in a while. He studied at FEA for a year, building his self-confidence, language, and other key personal skills. Today, Rohit has built himself a successful commercial photography business, and in fact has created jobs for several employees in his business. So I encourage everyone to investigate how to happily squander our time for a purpose beyond our own pleasure, beyond our own profit, and beyond our own prestige. Back to you, Gita.
Thank you so much. It's so beautiful that, the idea of squandering oneself. Actually, giving of oneself is really the biggest philanthropy. As I said, it's the love for people. That's great. Thank you, Deepak. Chris, I know it's very late at night for you. Can I ask you to please make some opening statements?
Sure, Gita, and it's an honor and privilege to be amongst this group, and we had a discussion about philanthropy before doing this, so it actually triggered my thoughts and what I need to share. The first thing that comes to my mind is that I started this after I stepped down from Infosys in 2014 at the age of 60. Right, and that's the first message I have for people. In events like this, people ask this question: what do you regret? Right? What would you change if you can? If you look back, and the first thing that comes to my mind is I regret that I didn't start my giving back way early. I started this only at the age of 60 after I stepped down from Infosys. And that's the first thing I would like to share. I think we have to make giving a habit, even with our children, so that they get the satisfaction of helping somebody. And giving back doesn't have to be money. Giving back, I believe, more worthwhile is giving your time, because when you give your time, you can't take it back. You cannot get it back. When you give money, you can actually make more of that, actually. And we normally give back money that we don't miss ourselves. We're not sacrificing anything in our life by giving this money. This is money which we'll probably never spend. So that's one thing I would like to share. I felt that I should have started much earlier. Then, having decided to give back, I have to choose an area for giving back, and I chose supporting research because I looked around and I saw that there are many people supporting education, many people supporting people who are disadvantaged, etc. And I could do that, and I'm doing that also. I'll come back to that. But I felt that by helping research, I can, kind of lesson learned from working in the IT industry is by leveraging India, we actually created an option for global multinationals to tap into a workforce which normally they would not tap into, which allows them to look at lower cost economies, which also changes the life of people in the lower cost economies to get global employment, etc. And the same set of principles we are applying in research. And it goes beyond that also, and I'll explain that. So by supporting research from India on global problems, we are actually adding to the number of people doing research. Hopefully that will solve the problem faster because more number of people are working. By adding India to the research ecosystem, we lower the cost, because for every $5 spent in the US, if you spend $1 in India, you actually double the output. And the people skills are the same, capabilities are the same, because the same people cross the Atlantic and do very well. So why can't they do the same thing sitting in India? The third is by bringing diversity in perspectives, you actually expand the problem domain. So here I will, use the example of the research that I support. It's on aging and aging-related neurological disorders like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia. And this is a global problem because everywhere people are living longer, and it is estimated that about 1 in 5, 1 in 6 will develop some neurological disorder as they age. And this is a significant global problem. In a developing country like India, it is the family that looks after the elderly, and the social cost on the family is actually significant, and they have no other means to provide support and things like that. In India, it is estimated that there will be more than 200 million people above the age of 65 in the next 10 to 15 years, and all over the world, the aging population will exceed the younger population, and that's why we are calling an aging society, right? Japan has already reached there, and most countries are reaching there sooner than later, and India will also be there. Now, when you look at healthcare, for example, if 20% of the world's population is not represented in that research initiative, you are not sure whether the solution that is being developed will benefit that society or not, because the genetic makeup is different, the food habits are different, we have vegetarians, non-vegetarians, the literacy is different, and when it comes to brain, these things definitely matter. Malnutrition is a big problem. Again, it actually stunts development. So many other issues are very, very unique to a region, unique to a country, and things like that. And that's what I believe, will actually benefit entire humanity if we are able to add to the research work that is being done. And that's the reason behind setting up the Center for Brain Research at Indian Institute of Science, which works in the in the area of aging and aging-related neurological disorders. As I said, we are doing a longitudinal study for 10,000 people over 10 years in a rural setting, and a similar cohort in the urban to come out of this study. And we are actually looking at how people age. So the subjects are around 40, 45 years old, and we track them for the next 10 years and how they age. And if they develop some neurological disorders, then we can go back and look at this data. Set this up as in collaboration also with Alzheimer's Association in the US, with some of the research efforts that is happening in other parts of the world, etc. And the last thing I want to say here is that, see, if you look at efforts that come out of developed countries, they sometimes don't get the developing world perspective. Just look at the vaccine. The initial vaccines that have come out, can't actually be deployed in India because of the storage conditions, the cold storage that's required, the cost, and things like that. And that is what happens when you don't bring the developing country perspective. You are developing solutions for the top 10% of the world and ignoring the 90% of the world. By India being involved in this research, I strongly believe that we can bring solutions to which will address the 90% of the world. So these are many of the reasons why I believe that we need to support world-class research. Of course, as we look at the 21st century, which is a knowledge era century, intelligence era, research and knowledge creation is very important, and we should be able to actually do world-class research, create world-class startups, world-class entrepreneurs. These are the additional benefits that we get by providing a way to create knowledge and IPR in India. The initial, this is a long-term let's say endeavor, and the initial results are actually very good because the papers that are coming out, the interest it's generating, some of the early results between comparison between urban cohort and rural cohort. One interesting thing came, the tension and the hypertension that you see in people, there is no difference between rural and urban. which was a very strange thing, at least I felt, because I thought rural people probably are going to be, more, more normal or things like that. But it looks like hypertension is same in the urban cohort and the rural cohort. Some interesting results are coming actually, and it will be very useful actually. One other thing, Deepak talked about livelihood, and another project I'm involved in is in the region of Araku, which is in Andhra Pradesh. It's a tribal area, and about 12-15 years back, the government at that point, the United Andhra Pradesh, decided that these tribals are living off the forest. They should be moved away from living off the forest to create a livelihood. And they found out that coffee grows very well. So Nandi Foundation was asked, and I'm a trustee of that, was asked to actually help them plant coffee and take them through the cycle. And fast forward to today, more than 10,000 tribal families have been transformed. Their incomes have been tripled. They all now are building paka houses and things like that. I'm told that even jewelry shops are coming up. Schools have come up. Bank branches. There were no bank branches in that region. Bank branches are coming. Schools are now coming. Somebody estimated that there are now 400 playgrounds in that region. Now it's a very large area, multiple villages and things like that. And over the next several years, it is estimated that they will have to import labor to work on the plantation because they are now too well off to work in the plantation themselves. The other interesting part is this coffee is 100% exported. So we are actually creating world-leading coffee by tribals in Araku, in India. So parallelly, we are creating an Araku coffee brand, which is the first Indian coffee brand, which is rated in the top 15% quartile in the world. It just won the gold medal in France. So in an advanced country, in a coffee drinking country, we won gold medal for Araku coffee. So I thought I'll share these two. A lot can be done, and we just need to, think innovatively, think creatively, and think long term in what you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. That's really, really inspiring what you're doing. And Chris actually is doing many other projects that I'll make him talk about, other things you're doing at Nandi. But right now, let me just ask all of you that, you're all doing very, very important things, big things. What is it in your life that was a trigger that made you start that? Was it always there, or was there an incident or a person who inspired you to do that? Arjun, do you want to start?
Sure. I was thinking back at what triggered it in my case, and I think my first time I donated money was way back in 1996, and I decided to honor one of my professors at IIT Kharagpur. Basically, at that time, I thought the telecom revolution would come to India. And, India would probably be able to lead the world once, because we had no real line communication infrastructure. And that as mobile phones or cell phones were coming in cellular, we would take the lead. And so I know Kharagpur had when I did my electronics and electrical communication engineering, it had a very strong line communication department, which was sort of, no one was really interested in it because more people were interested in computers rather than in communications, especially line communications. And so in the endowment, I set up a school for telecommunications and named it after Professor G.S. Sanyal, who was the professor. He was our head of department when I graduated. He was also president of the Gymkhana when I was general secretary sports. And, I thought a lot of my values, a lot of things that I did in life, I learned from him. And that I should really find a way to honor him in some way. And the satisfaction that I got from that, just doing that and, getting that school set up, is what really triggered it in my mind, in my psyche, that, hey, this is giving me much more satisfaction than actually doing well selling computers, which is what we were doing in those days, what I was doing in those days, and building a company and stuff like that. So that it's been a part of my DNA, let me put it that way, from that time onwards. I've got to say that I was in California since '89, and so California is a community property state. So technically, half my assets belong to my wife, and so I did ask her, and it was nice that she agreed as soon as she met Professor Sanyal at an event here when he'd come across. And so really, I thought if she was like-minded and she wanted to do that too, that why don't we then look at this much more actively as we go forward in whatever we're doing. And that's really what triggered it. When you asked that question, I was thinking about it. I thought
That's so beautiful. I'm a professor myself, and I know that every now and then there's a student who's been, whose ideas have been set on fire and has gone on and done amazing things. And it's just so heartwarming to hear the story that a professor really inspired you. So, Deepak, do you have a story to share?
Yes, sure, but I don't have a trigger point as such, that one specific incident. It's just the fact that I grew up in India. Both my parents had a college education, so we were okay. But poverty is all around. You just can't, you look at no matter where you live in Delhi, where I live, no matter how wealthy your neighborhood is, you look out the window, there's probably a needy person that you'll see every 5 or 10 minutes. So growing up, in fact, when I used to walk to catch my school bus, I had to walk through this small block of really low-income shanties. The bus stop was on the other side. And that just stayed with me, that people are living such marginal existences. And, I was growing up as, I was a teenager, I think I was maybe in the 10th or 11th standard at that time. And I just said, there's so much opportunity in this world, yet there are people over here that are eking out a marginal existence. And if there's anything worth doing, it's helping these people in my life. So it was just, that was a starting point, but really there was no evidence ever that I came across that made me change my mind. Because this reason is still there today. Everything I do was still as valid today as it was back then. So yeah, it's just the world around me that inspires me to make a change.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Gandhi actually said that poverty is a form of violence. If we are allowing people to stay poor, that is a form of violence. And yes. Also, I think that there's so much of it, like you say, Deepak, in India, growing up in India, we all see that. And then it somehow gets normalized, and it should never get normalized, because if you think about Buddha, he became Buddha because he was protected from everything and then suddenly exposed to reality. So it had not been normalized for him. So he was able to be shocked by it and then be able to, come up with a philosophy. So I think it's super important that we don't let that be normalized. Actually, in my estimation, and Chris and I were talking about it, I think the biggest issues we have to deal in the world today, including United States, including India, including many countries, is the issue of inequality, right? The rich people keep getting rich and the poor keep getting poor. And, we don't want to get into a big discussion about neoliberalism and irresponsible capitalism. Capitalism is good, but, it should benefit everybody. So I think that's a big thing. And so I just want to ask Chris. Chris, do you have a story to share with us?
Well, as I said, the trigger in my case was as I stepped down from Infosys, I had to reinvent myself. So the first thing was I'm not going to work in the IT industry because I didn't want to compete with Infosys. So I had to clearly, figure out what else I would like to do. And given that I was in corporate life, for profit till that time, I said now at least 50-60% of my time should go into working in the not-for-profit side, and maybe 40% in the for-profit side. And that's when I decided to support research. The other way I supported research was to set 6 chairs up. And this is very similar to what Arjun just now mentioned. And these chairs are actually named after different people who have actually inspired, supported, taught me, etc. So the first chair at IIT Madras is named after Professor Mahabala. In fact, he had a role to play in me getting into computer science. The second chair is named after Professor Muthukrishnan, who was the head of department, and I did my MTech project with him. The third chair is named after Narayan Murthy, who founded Infosys, and we all joined together. At Indian Institute of Science, the 2 chairs have been named. The third chair is yet to be named. The 2 chairs that have been named, one is after my father-in-law, and second is after Sudha Murthy, because Sudha Murthy is an alumnus in Indian Institute of Science. I'm not an alumnus of Indian Institute of Science, and I thought it's appropriate that it's named after her. So yes, there are influences in your life, and when you can, actually, you should thank them. You should remember them. I think it's appropriate to do that, actually.
Thank you. That's so wonderful. So, I see a pattern here that you all see that education, research, technology, those are the really game changers. So in talking to Chris and also Deepak before, you all mentioned, about innovation or research and creativity, and then entrepreneurship, and then philanthropy. So what is the link? I think many people on this panel might be serious researchers or into business. So can you make for them some kind of a link, or how does one lead to another? How does innovation, creativity would lead to businesses and would lead to entrepreneurship and to philanthropy? Would somebody, one of you, like to take that? I see.
So I can take a stab at it. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, after Deepak, I'll give my perspective. Go ahead, Deepak.
So education typically is measured. The outcome is measured in grades, and the marks is what we look at success for education. I'm talking about a narrow education, school, college, whatever. For me, I think it's the change was to not measure it in terms of learning grades, but to measure it in terms of income levels. What does it lead to in the marketplace? Because again, I'm talking about it from the lens of FEA. We don't have the opportunity to go and give 20 years of education to a young person. We are working with a youth that are already at the age of 18, 20, 25. So education is kind of behind them. What can we do for them now that will change their income levels? So I think that was something that we brought to it, that we measure education in terms of rupees that someone is capable of earning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So from my perspective, so definitely education changes the life, and we are all examples of that, and Deepak has a even better example. I also believe that innovation and from innovation, creation of products and creation of businesses is how an economy gets transformed. See, I look at US and US in some sense owns the 20th century. It's the greatest transformation of a society in 100 years. The first half of 20th century, US transformed itself through manufacturing, automating manufacturing, factories came up and things like that. And the second half, US transformed itself through digital computing. So they actually owned the second industrial revolution and the third industrial revolution. Now, we have the opportunity. We are at the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution. And I strongly believe that if we trigger research, innovation, and entrepreneurship, we can actually transform India in the fourth industrial revolution, maybe even aspire to make the 21st century India's century. And we have seen that it can transform society in 100 years or in our lifetime. Maybe that's the driver for transformation of Indian society. In entrepreneurship, luckily, we are actually starting to do better and better. It's the third best location for entrepreneurship and startups in the world. Venture capital is available, unicorns and large companies are coming out from India. There is a culture of entrepreneurship and startups and things like that. I felt that research is an area where we need to strengthen, and that's another reason why I'm investing in research in India. And we don't want to reinvent the wheel, so we need to work collaboratively. We need to learn from the best. We need to leverage their experiences. We need to bring in the best people in an area from other parts of the world to seed and accelerate the creation of that area in India. This is what I'm doing. When I invest in brain sciences, I'm bringing some of the best professors. These 6 chairs are all occupied by professors from the US. They spend part of the time in India. Around them, we have created a group of about 40 people at Indian Institute of Science working in the area of brain, and another 40 people in IIT Madras working in the area of brain. So in a short period of about 5-6 years, we've created world-class researchers working with the best in the world. And I hope that will trigger a lot of new things going forward.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, go ahead, Arjun.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, yes, I think both Deepak and Chris raised some very important points. For me, I think the link between entrepreneurship and philanthropy comes from passion. You got to have a passion to do something, and that's why you become an entrepreneur. You want that passion and you want to change the world. I think those are the two important things. And I think for someone to do philanthropy, you've got to have the same, you've got to have passion, and you've got to want to change the world in some way. And if you combine both those, then I think you see that link between entrepreneurship and philanthropy. And there are lots of entrepreneurs in the philanthropic environment. Mm-hmm. In fact, we are now starting to see, or not, we have been seeing, the word social entrepreneurship is really a philanthropist who wants to be self-sustaining and goes into that. And so you're seeing a lot of social entrepreneurship setups today. And you've got also a lot of people who fund social entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And so, that whole ecosystem is coming up. And I think that's in my mind, that's the link between entrepreneurship and philanthropy.
Mm-hmm. That's great. All of you are so accomplished. And I think the audience is probably looking at you and saying, yeah, because you guys were so successful in your businesses and your work, so easy for you to start these, big philanthropic ventures and create schools. So what can you tell a young person right now who may have just graduated from IIT, and is full of dreams to change the world? Can you give some advice to people, like, some really bold things that people can think about to really leap into this on the deep end? So
I would say that firstly, shine where you stand. You don't need to wait for the day when you're wealthy, when you're famous, when you're settled. Don't wait for that. Life will pass you by. So you just put that in your head. We can all shine where we stand. There is an opportunity all around us to do little things, big things, whatever. The other thing that I'd like to say is that once you start working, if you look at your income and your time, if you were to give 10% of your time, 10% of your income, would your life change? Your lifestyle change? Not at all. For most people, giving up 10% of your time and 10% of your income is not going to change your life in a bad way. But I can guarantee you that it will change your life in a very beautiful way. Mm-hmm. It's in giving that we receive. This is St. Francis of Assisi. It is in pardoning that we pardon. It is in giving that we receive. Yes. Go discover this for yourself. You'll find it's a very beautiful experience. Mm-hmm. It brings out a lot of creativity in you, especially when you donate your time. We all have busy lives. We all have businesses to run or jobs to do or whatever. But the moment you make a commitment that you're going to set aside X percentage of your time to help others or do something for the world around you, you'll find ways to become more efficient, more creative in the rest of your time. And the universe, nature, whatever you believe in, God, they'll compensate you for it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had heard Deepak when I was younger, because I clearly, subscribe to the equation that he said, everybody can actually give 10% of their time and 10% of their income, and they will not miss it actually. I want to quote Chip Conley, who is actually a mentor at Airbnb, and is seen as a guru for technologists, entrepreneurs, etc. He's, I think, in the California area, Baja California, etc. And he said the meaning of your life is to find your gift, and the purpose of your life is to give it away. Right, and that's how you need to think about. Find your gift and give it away. That's your purpose of your life.
Who said that? Can you repeat that? That's
Chip
so
Conley.
Mhm.
Chip Conley.
Beautiful. That's amazing. Yes, yes, indeed.
No, I agree with everything both Chris and Deepak have said. I just think, I just nothing much to add to that, but just that, just what are you passionate about? Everyone at every age, especially when you're younger, has some passion. And, just try and just make a difference. I mean, you think an individual can't make a difference. You always say, what can I do? The problem is so large. But, I had a friend of mine who gave up her dentistry practice here in the US and started going to all these places where there were wars and refugee camps and spending time with them. And she'd come to Delhi, and she stayed with us for a few days because she was sick. She had this diarrhea and stuff like that. My mother was a doctor, and so she'd come in, so I had my mother look at her and take care of her. But I asked her, why did you give up this dentistry thing that's doing quite well, sort of leave your husband for these long periods of time? And what do you do in these camps, refugee camps, that someone else can't do? And why do you do it? And she said something that's always stayed with me. She said, I do little things with lots of love.
Mm.
Ultimately, that is what you've got to do. If you can do that, you'll make a difference.
Yeah.
You asked about technology and innovation, right? That's the opportunity that we have today, because there's so much technology innovation around you that you can find new solutions, and you can actually make things better for people. Access is better. You can actually start a business at very low cost. You can start a business that has global impact. You can start a philanthropy that can have global impact. And just look at this. Time for the first time chose a Kid of the Year, right?
Yes.
I forget the name
Gita
now.
Rao.
Gita Rao, right? 15-year-old, and she is making an impact, and she is actually teaching 20,000 kids all around the world on how to innovate, how to do research and things like that. Today, technology allows you the access, the reach, the ability to impact people anywhere in the world. Age is not a factor. You need very little money to do these things. Of course, you need time, and you need to allocate time. You need to have the passion, as Arjun said, and you need to think outside the box, think innovatively, and you can make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is very inspiring that time did that. So, you all are doing really wonderful things. So my question to you is, did you learn that at IIT? Is IIT doing sufficient, is there sufficient emphasis at IIT in making people aware of the social issues and their responsibility as future leaders? Or do you think there needs to be more of it? Like, are you special, or is everyone at IIT being exposed to that?
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I'll just, it's very interesting that you say that. The curriculum is also changing. Most of the IITs now, at least, some of them I've seen, IIT Gandhinagar, for example, brings in these BTech students, and the first 4 weeks or 6 weeks, they are asked to go out to the village and find a problem and solve it. Right? That's how they start. That's the orientation, actually. So they want empathy with your surroundings, understand the social issues, problems before you actually start learning your BTech. So there are such interventions that are happening to connect people. Definitely, when if you're getting into an IIT, your life gets transformed. My life got transformed. Your life gets transformed, and this network that of IITians is probably one of the most powerful networks. When I say I'm an IITian, and the other person immediately responds, and I'm from this IIT, I stayed in this hostel, and I'm this something that immediately happens, right? And I suddenly realized today when I heard the opening or something like that, 500,000 IITian, 500,000, right? 500,000 IITians are around the world. That's a powerful force, actually. So we need to leverage that force to make a difference, make a change. And the new graduates that are coming out are definitely more empathetic to societal problems. At least they're trying to inculcate those values now in the students.
So people will not see poverty and issues as normal. They will actually look at them in a way that they want to solve them, right?
Yeah,
What
so I was going to say that IIT Kharagpur is somewhat different to the earlier IITs because we're in the middle of West Midnampur district, which is probably the most backward district in Bengal. And my fight with Kharagpur over the last 50 years that I have graduated has been that, look, you are an institute of national importance, yet you have made very little or no difference to your hinterland, which sort of doesn't gel well with the concept that you're an institute of national importance. And so we've started a number of initiatives. I should say they have started a number of initiatives. And one very interesting thing they've done with the students is, and I'll give you an example. So what happens is there's a central school at Kharagpur. So whether you're a professor's child or you're a Mali's child, you go to the same central school. And what happens is that the Mali's kid drops out after class 6, class 7 in that area because he can't keep up with the science and the math and the English and stuff like that. So now we're trying to get students who are at IIT to mentor these kids one-on-one to try and get them to go to the senior classes. Of course, you have a problem when you do that. And so, IIT has solved it in their own way by separating the high schools for girls and for boys. But we are hoping that if this catches on, when that kid, the Mali's kid, graduates and if he goes to college and needs a scholarship, this IITian would have worked for 2-3 years somewhere and would be in a position to support him, and that emotional bond would exist because he's mentored him at that point. And then, once you have that emotion and you have the satisfaction of making a difference in someone's life, I think that is something you don't want to give up, or you can't give up the rest of your life. And it will put that empathy and put that philanthropic kind of mental state in your actions and what you do over a period of time. And so let's see, I don't know how it will work, but we are hoping that over time this thing will work.
Arjun, you are reminding me of the time I went to IIT Kharagpur for the first time with my husband, and I asked him the exact same questions. 70 years after independence and IIT is in the middle, and why is this area like that? But I'm really glad to hear about this mentorship model because I think everybody listening to this conversation is a very privileged person. So if everybody can just pull up at least one more person, like if you got jobs because you have a social network, can you bring somebody else into that network and help them as well along? So I think mentorship is a wonderful idea. Deepak, did you want to add to that?
Actually, I'm delighted to hear what Chris and Arjun said, because when I went to IIT, we did not have these conversations. So if Gandhinagar is doing it, that's awesome. If what Arjun is saying is happening in Kharagpur, that's awesome. And, makes me happy that the world is moving on nicely.
I think we need to start that at kindergarten, actually, for everyone, kindergarten, junior high, high school. It really has to be built in so that by the time people are able to make a change, they can make a change.
So it certainly helps.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it certainly is a very important part of education, because you're building character, you're building empathy early on, rather than just having a very narrow focus on, making a living. It's also about making a life, that these things help you do.
And that's why Gita, that's why I started by saying, one thing I regret is I started giving back much later in life. I feel that giving has to become a habit from a very young age. And the earlier you inculcate that value, I think, they will develop as better citizens.
Yeah. So, Chris, because you started late, right? So I want to ask you, you all look very young to me. So what are your audacious goals for 10 years? Chris, how are you going to make up for having started late?
Well, I'm busier than ever, involved in multiple things, and I have ambitious goals for each of the things that we have started. The research area, we're hoping that there will be some breakthrough. It's also being helped by the acceleration in innovation and technology. Similarly, everything I'm involved in, I'm trying to set some audacious goals, for tribals from Araku to create a brand of coffee that's getting gold medal at the world stage, right? That's an inspiring story. I think it's New York Times which put out an article which said coffee can change the world, right? That's the kind of stories that we need to create around the things that you do. And I'm hoping that each of the things I'm involved, because of the credibility we have built, and I'm humble enough to say that there's a lot of lack in what I've achieved, but that allows me to set such goals and inspire people, and that's I feel lucky to be able to do that.
Great. Arjun, what is your audacious goal for the next 10 years?
So, to do that, I've got to give you a little story. Many years ago, when I was at HCL, we needed 300 people. We had open recs for 300 plus people. And my head of HR, Sujit Bakshi, who's now with TechM, we couldn't find them. So I asked Sujit, there are 1 billion people in this country. Why can't you find me these 300 people we need to grow? And he said something to me at that time. He said, there are no unemployed in India. They're unemployables. And he told me, reduce your spec and I will get you those people, but I can't meet the specification you're saying you need. And so I got a little frustrated. I had gone to IIT Kharagpur to do some sales, and I was sitting in their guest house having dinner. And sometimes it's easy to talk to someone who you don't know than it is to someone you know. And there was a professor from University of Utah, Salt Lake City, visiting IIT Kharagpur, and he was sitting across the table from me when we were having dinner. And he asked me, what do you do? And I told him, I'm HCL, and this is what we do. And, I was telling him, I feel I'm not contributing enough to society. I need to do more. And so maybe I should just give this up and full-time go into philanthropy and stuff like that. And he told me something at that time that I've never forgotten. He said, you are creating 300 jobs a year. For India, that's far more important than doing any philanthropy. And so I look at it that my wife tells me, why aren't you retiring? And I keep telling her that as long as I can create jobs, I think it's my duty to create jobs in India. So as long as I can do it, I would want to continue doing it. So I work with a number of startups that are in the social entrepreneurship space in technology, mainly leveraging technology, that are creating jobs. And I try and help them scale so that we create more jobs. So that's my dream, is that as long as I have my boots on, I should be able to keep creating jobs for people in India that would have obviously helped them indirectly to live a better life. That's my 10-year dream.
So creating employment and employable people, right? To increase. So that brings me to Deepak. Deepak, you already told me your audacious goal of helping 5 million people. Are you going to better that for me?
Oh my goodness.
If you do it on this.
So my secret goal, well, not going to be secret anymore, was really to figure out a way to go to 10 million before I die. Now, death is an unknown date. So I don't know if I'll get there or not. So I figured 20 years, I'm good for working for 20 years. But if I live beyond that, I'll go to 10 million.
Okay, so everybody on the panel, please make a note of what he said. Yes, Chris.
Gita, I would actually define success as any impact you can have on one other person. It's a simple definition which anybody can actually achieve. And the more people you can touch, it's better. But I think if you change one person's life, I think not related to you, I think you have succeeded. I think that's a simple definition.
So I hope that everybody who's listening to this panel will at least touch the life of one more person. That'll be a great, great panel. But Chris, I want to come back to you. Can you talk about the awards you just gave? You gave some really serious awards just now. Can you talk about that?
Okay, Infosys Science Foundation, right? Yeah. The founders of Infosys decided that, again, it is to support world-class research out of India. We will set up the Infosys Science Foundation, which gives out these awards for best research done in India or done by Indians or done for India. And we have instituted these awards along the lines of the Nobel Prize. So in 6 areas: mathematical sciences, physical sciences, life sciences, engineering and computer science, social sciences, and economics, actually. And we just gave out the awards just two days back. The jury is international. There are several Nobel laureates in the jury panel, etc. And the prize money is $100,000 or equivalent in rupees. And the government of India has actually supported this by saying that if you're in India, it's tax-free. This amount is tax-free in their hands. So they get the full $100,000. It's our own way of creating icons, celebrating their research and things like that. So for example, in physical sciences this year, Aravinda Ghosh from Indian Institute of Science won the award for actually working in the area of two-dimensional material, nanomaterial, graphene, and creating a new technique for probably solar cells or transistors in the future. And these are kind of work that we need to highlight, showcase, and these then inspire other youngsters to take on research and things like that. And it is our own way of actually saying, we are now helping you a little bit in terms of your earning and things like that.
Yeah. So if people who are listening might be interested in these awards or want to apply for them next year, they should just look at Infosys Foundation.
Infosys Science Foundation, yes.
Okay. That is great. So I think that you all, with your own example and the things you have said today, have really inspired a lot of people. And I hope that everybody listening to this panel will go away inspired. And as Chris said, that at least touch one more person. In a way, share your privilege, and you don't have to wait till you're as famous and as accomplished as our panelists today, but start where you are right now in whatever way you can, sharing your time, sharing your privilege, looking at people differently, understanding that we are all connected, because philanthropy, actually the meaning of the word is love for other human beings. So a big thank you to you. With that, I'm going to turn it over back to Ron Gupta, who's the organizer of this panel. Ron, over to you.
Thank you, Gita, and thank you, thank you so much, Chris, staying up so late in the night. And Deepak, is he still there? Or is he?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Deepak, so much for joining us, and of course, Gita, you've been you've been absolutely marvelous. I'd asked you to do another panel about a month and a half ago, and you're now becoming an expert in in running the panels. So I'm going to obviously send out some thank you notes, but do want to let you know that we have two other small sessions that will start in a few minutes. One is by Samsung, and that one is on the next wave, Internet of Everything. And Young Son, who is CEO of one of the Samsung companies, will be speaking there. And we have another one by a new or a relatively new startup called Mind Techo. And then Nishant Mungali will be speaking from there on becoming go-to-market ready to experience economy. And so if you have time, you're welcome to go to those. And then we also have a keynote at the end by Ajay Gopal, who is the CEO of ANSYS, and he's also an IITian. Okay, thank you again very much, everybody, and hope to see you in one of the other sessions, either later today or tomorrow. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Deepak.
Arjun, I forgot to mention your name.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
Thanks,
Just no need too long.
Thanks, Ron, for having us, and thanks, Arjun, Deepak. Wonderful to be on the panel with you, and Gita, very good moderation. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
You all are such stars. It was very easy and such a pleasure to get to know you and your amazing work. So this is really wonderful. Thank you to each one of you. And thank you to Ron, always my good friend for many years.
Thank you, Gita.
Okay.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.